Okay, picking up where we left off, we're somewhere in the vicinity of page 322, talking about how to configure things for printing. There's another cool thing that can happen when printing. Let's say, for example, I have a hyperlink in here that I've got. Let me just throw one in. So here we go. I'll say a href equals. I'll use my own. And then it says my web page. Okay, cool. So when I view this in a browser, I can hover over that and down at the bottom, if you look down at the bottom, you can see where it says immigrate.com. But what happens when I print this? I don't get any hover. So I have no idea what that link is. So it could be what you want to do is to configure this guy so that when doing hyperlinks, you actually show the content of the hyperlink rather than the description. Or actually, what you probably want to do is do both. Show the description, the my web page, and then include also the rest of the stuff. So I'm going to go to my print layout guy, and I'm going to go here and basically say a tag. So anytime there's an a tag, I want you to do some magic. Well, remember we talked about pseudo classes? Remember how we had a colon and we did hover and all that? Okay, well, there's a thing called a pseudo element. It's kind of weird. And this one is called after. So after text appears, so in the a tag, I want to have a particular something to appear after the a tag part appears. So the first part is the word content. Okay, so content is kind of weird. I know it's kind of an odd thing, but just bear with me. So content means displaying whatever it is you would have normally displayed. Okay, that makes sense, right? Content. And then after that, I want to throw in some extra stuff. I want to have a space and then something in parentheses. So I'm building something. So what you would have normally displayed, and then a space, and then open parentheses. Then we're going to put the actual hyperlink itself, and then we're going to put a closing parentheses, and maybe a space after it, so it won't look bad. So this is going to, and this is another cool, this is called a function, ATTR, function. And then you put in here the thing you want to show up. Not, I don't want the words, the letters href. I want whatever is inside href. I know it's a little weird. And so I'm going to put a close and do this. Okay. I know that's kind of odd, but just bear with me. What that basically means is whenever there's an anchor tag, put the normal content which you normally show, then add to that a space, an opening parentheses, whatever attribute, whatever's inside the quotation marks of the href attribute, and then close it off. Is that pretty cool? All right. So I'm going to save this. We're going to go to main layout. I'm going to display this one more time. And of course here it made no change whatsoever because we're not printing. Now when I do printing, and I might have to zoom in a little bit because I can't see a blessed thing. Where is my zoom? I need more than that. Okay, so here it displayed the normal content, and then it put a space, parentheses, more stuff, and then closed off parentheses. Isn't that pretty doggone cool? Okay, that's some cool stuff. Those are called pseudo classes. There's one for before, after. Let's do the first letter one. I like the first letter one. Some people do this just to make text pretty cool. I'm going to do this one in the normal layout one, okay? I'm going to say P colon first letter. Okay, so whatever the first letter. And then I'm going to say font size 200. No, yeah. Let's do 2EM. All right, let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to save that guy, go to here. So it made the first letter of every paragraph much, much bigger. Okay, I mean, I know people who do this. You know, it kind of looks cool. There's probably a name for this treatment. I don't know what it's called. But anyway, some cool stuff. So before, after, first line, first letter, first letter. There's a lot of these cool pseudo things. Cool. All right, on page 327, they talk about doing mobile. And we've kind of sort of talked about some of the things to deal with mobile. First of all, most likely you're going to have a physically small screen, not necessarily low resolution, because geez, my phone is got a 5-inch screen, but it has the same resolution as my desktop. Low bandwidth, it's not going to be robust. You're not going to be cable modem speeds on your phone. Limited number of fonts. Maybe there's only like 24 fonts installed on your phone. Limited number of colors. Awkward controls. In other words, the distance between buttons are going to have to be bigger. It's going to be more difficult for you to operate. Most likely does not have flash support, and limited processor and memory, and there actually could be a cost for downloading those darn images. So you want to make your web page kind of sort of quick. All right, so there's some more things if you continue on the page. One of them is, if you can configure it, make sure that you only scroll in one direction. You don't want to have a web page up there when you're looking at it on a small screen where you have to scroll left and right to be able to see everything, and up and down to see the rest of the content. If you could configure it, make everything fit most likely in the width direction, so you just have to scroll up and down. Okay, we'll do that in a minute. Don't use tables, which we haven't even talked about, but don't do it. Minimal navigation, nothing really fancy, and most likely have it at the top. Don't have it on the sides because the screen real estate is just too scarce. So go ahead and put it at the top rather than at the bottom, or on the side rather. Avoid wide graphics. The rule of thumb when you're doing kind of mobile stuff is about 320 pixels wide. It's about as big as a picture you want. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind when you're doing these things. Okay. The next thing I talk about is this thing called a viewport on page 330. A viewport is well, okay. This whole HTML tag or CSS tag was invented by the folks when the very first mobile phones came out, and they allowed you to like pick a zoom level, and you could go in there. You could have a meta tag that had a viewport. And you could have, a device width and then the scale and all that. But it's mostly proprietary and people just don't use it anymore. The reason why it's in the book on page 330 is just if you ever run across this, you'd go, what the heck? Well, we don't do things like that anymore, so I'm never going to ask you to do it in real life. But I'm just telling you that technology existed at one time when the first iPhone came out. The web world wasn't ready for them, and so they had to have some special tags in there to be able to zoom the content so you could see it. We don't need that. What we do need is this thing called media queries. So on page 331, this is basically a CSS standards way of doing what Apple did back then. It basically allows the web developer to query the device and say, device, how big a screen do you have? And if it answers, well, I've got, 1940 pixels wide, it goes, good, I'm going to give you a nice big wide content. If you answered, well, I've only got 800 wide, it's going to say, well, okay, let me move things around. So just like we did the print media thing, and it said, print and screen, right? Okay. Same thing. I can have multiple CSS files. One of them's designed for normal screens. One of them is designed for printing. One of them is designed for narrow screens. Even if you can hold your phone in the portrait mode and you turn it to the landscape mode, I might want to reformat my web page because you rotated the phone. That'd be kind of cool. All right. So let's talk about how it works. And I'm going to go back to here And I'm not actually going to do one, but I'm going to make it look like I'm doing one. So here goes. So I'm going to do another one of these links. And this part remains the same. It's still a style sheet. And the href, I'm gonna fake this. I don't actually have one out there, so just bear with me. So let's call this one layout small. And the type is still the same. It's still gonna be text CSS. Except here, instead of just having this media thing, I'm going to actually go to the media, and it's if you were a programmer, this would be an if statement. Here's how it works. So I'm going to say media. Well, first of all, media, and I really do want it to be the screen, right? Because I don't want this to happen on print. I don't care how many pixels. In other words, querying your printer, that doesn't work. So screen, and then I say, and width, or let's do max width. Max width, I don't know, 480, something like that. So what this is basically going to do is it's going to query my device and see if my screen is at least 480 pixels, and if it matches that criteria, it's going to load that one. So you could imagine you could have several of these, right? You could have the normal screen one, then you could have, min width and between this size and that size, a minimum size of this and a maximum size of that. So you could just have multiple one of these things kind of cascading. The examples in the book are pretty cool, where they talk about how you come up with a max width or this and that. And so again, once again, if you're a programmer, you're just nodding your head saying, that looks like an if statement. Well, it is. It's a media query. Now let's talk about what media things you can query. Well, there's a max device height or max device width. Okay, now you're actually talking to the phone or the browser. I'm sorry, or to the screen. But that in a phone, it's almost always maximized, right? The maximize button, so to speak, is almost always on because you're on a phone. But if I'm on desktop, right, I can do this and minimize this thing, right? And so if I minimize this guy, so now my device width hasn't changed, but my viewport basically has. So there's a difference between a max device height and min device height. What basically you're after, what's the aspect ratio? So max height is the maximum height of the viewport window, not the device. Most of the time, that's what you're after. Because if you got somebody who's on a desktop and they've got the browser squashed in, that's basically the same thing as holding a phone in the portrait mode. What do you care? As long as it's squashed and you still want to be able to read your content. There is one called orientation. There actually is a thing for orientation where it's landscape and portrait, but to tell you the truth, it doesn't work. Maybe one day in the future, but right now, that just, what can I tell you? It doesn't work. Okay, so media queries, that's pretty cool. This is how you really get mobile stuff to work. You really basically have to have a mobile emulator, which we'll talk in a minute, and then you adjust the sizes and take things out and move things around, adjust the sizes of graphics and stuff, and then presto changeo, you have one web page, and all you did was tweak some CSS to make it mobile. Pretty cool? Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. We'll continue this in just a few.